No.
We're going to proceed now with our program. And I'm David Taylor, Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association, and thank you for being here for the Leadership Luncheon at the 2010 Pennsylvania Leadership Conference. At a time when Harrisburg is facing a hurricane-force financial crisis, when general fund spending has gone from $20 billion to nearly $30 billion in just 8 years, when the interest on taxpayer-funded debt is now $1 billion per year, Pennsylvanians need real leadership more than ever. Making government live within its means shouldn't be empty campaign rhetoric or protective coloration for incumbent office holders who may say it, but then go on to do whatever they feel like. But when citizens across our Commonwealth despair of ever setting limits on state government, we need to remind them it can be done. It has been done. And with us today, we have the leader who did it and the leaders who are going to help us do it again. And with that, it is a tremendous honor for me to introduce to all of you Pennsylvania's 41st Governor, Ronald Reagan's Attorney General, ladies and gentlemen, Dick Thornburgh.
Couldn't have given me an introduction of which I'm more proud, David. I appreciate that very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you here today to talk about some of the issues of the day as we approach what I think is probably one of our most important electoral seasons in many years. Let me speak to you just briefly about 5 of the basic principles which I believe should provide guidance to our nation and to our Commonwealth as we try to work our way through these very challenging times. First, and perhaps most important, we must seek to ensure that government always acts to serve the interests of the individual citizen, as opposed to the interests of big business, big government, and big labor. Society now, as always, is best served by limiting interference in the day-to-day affairs of the individual, be they men or women, whatever race, ethnic origin, disability, or whoever, who are trying to make a living, raise their families, worship their God, and improve their quality of life. We must continue to protect the individual citizen from these big institutions which threaten to roll them up in their path. In particular, we must resist efforts to impose a deadly uniformity in the name of equality on our varied populace. I commend our Attorney General Tom Corbett and his counterparts across the country for taking appropriate action to thwart the dictates of the federal government as to exactly how and upon what we must spend our disposable income. That income is already reduced by heavy taxes and unwise government spending, and should not be reduced further by the mandatory purchase of health insurance or any other product or commodity. This raises serious constitutional issues, and I wish Tom and his colleagues well in their litigation. Number 2, we must assure that the free enterprise system continues to play the most significant role in maximizing individual opportunity. No political party should ever shy from being labeled the party of business. Each party should, in fact, be competing for that title in the effort to grow the economy and create quality jobs, particularly in the sophisticated and complicated global economy in which we now must compete. Achievement should be rewarded, and all persons should have a chance to rise to the top. We must also recognize what the late John Gardner once said: the best social program is a good economy. There's wisdom in those words, my friends. So long as the economy operates as freely as it possibly can from the dictates of the central government, and the jobs created are real private sector jobs, not just part-time census takers or stimulus-generated additions to already swollen government budgets. Maximum efforts must be undertaken to provide an environment which encourages private sector growth, investment, and the creation of permanent future-oriented jobs. Number 3, we must believe in and practice fiscal responsibility, smaller and more efficient government, better and more productive management, fewer and lower taxes, and a more disciplined and effective budget process. You will forgive me, I am sure, if I point out that meeting these goals during our 8 years in Harrisburg enable us to balance the budget every year without credit card gimmicks, to reduce a record state indebtedness by some $300 million, to cut both individual and corporate tax rates, to eliminate 15,000 unnecessary jobs from the swollen bureaucracy built up by our predecessors, and still leave a $350 million surplus as a legacy when we left office. You obviously do forgive me for mentioning that. That was all in the midst of the 3 Mile Island episode and the worst recession that we'd had since the Great Depression. What made the difference, of course, was good men and good women who worked with me in Harrisburg, and of the type that I'm sure we'll have in the next administration. That's what fiscal responsibility is all about. And a lot of that success